everyone. Welcome in tonight. It's good to see you all. As people are coming in, please put in the chat where you're calling from, what camp you stay with in Black Rock City, what your planning might be, default name. We're gonna get people in tonight, and we're gonna talk about uh, our lessons from this year. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. To kick off our sixth season of Campfire Talks this evening, I'm pleased to welcome Head of Placement Level. Um, Open us up.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our season six first episode of Campfire Talks. I remember back in 2020 when there's a small group of us trying to think about how to bring people together during the pandemic when people were still locked in their bedrooms, trying to hold meetings. You all were probably there. I was there. And it's sustained for 6 years. So I'm really proud of this team, the Camp Network team of Camp Support. And just so we this is all volunteer driven and run, and we're looking for more volunteers all the time to help keep this going. There's a lot of really great content over the last 6 years. If you haven't seen them before, if you want to refer back to them, I know often people have questions about all sorts of things, and there might be some people who've already talked about it or thought about it. So please try to just watch old episodes of the Campfire Talks too. They're really helpful. But I'm excited about today's conversation because this is kind of one of the major ones that we hold each year after the event. I know it's a couple months out at this point, so maybe a distant memory, but also maybe a little bit of traumatic memories we want to share with each other and how we were resilient through it all. So I'm looking forward to hearing kind of how the year went for you all and what kind of lessons were learned. I'm also going to give a quick plug because we are at December 2nd. It is officially the start of a new month, the last month of the year, but also kind of how the cycle spins over. And so we are putting a lot of work right now into planning for 2026 to make sure that Black Rock City happens again. And so you'll start seeing soon forms and information and things to get that all rolling again. So just appreciate your patience with our process. We're also looking for volunteers. So every year, kind of this time of year, allows us to recruit a new batch of folks to help just carry the torch. So if you're interested in volunteering, I'm going to share a link in chat for three teams within placement. There's the placement team that does the mapping of the city. There's a camp symposium team specifically organizing the camp symposium in March. And then we also have Camp Support and the Camp Network who brought you this campfire talk tonight. So anyway, great to see you all. I'll have more to say in a little bit, but welcome.
Thanks, Level. Before we actually get started with our conversation tonight, we actually want to hear what you want to talk about. So we have some ideas based on the results from the post-burn survey that camps and campers filled out. And so we're wondering which of these categories might be most fitting for what you want to talk about tonight. You'll see a poll pop up on your screen. So please tell us what you would like to hear about and what you might want to talk about tonight. I see those results coming in. Let's hear from some more people. If you're just joining us, please share in the chat where you're calling in from tonight and what camp you are with in Black Rock City. We're gathering our topics tonight to figure out what we might want to share about, vent about, share our wins from this year. maybe share some things that we are already having ideas about for next year, since reminded us that the cycle has already started again. I know many of us are already planning for next year. Hmm. Okay. Some good topics coming in. Looks like a lot of people want to talk about the weather, maybe infrastructure, maybe also how we put things together and take things down. And some other stuff in there, right?
Okay, we are at 70% people have answered. Vesper, just let me know when you want me to end the
Yeah.
poll.
All right. Last couple people, get your ideas in there. I think maybe two more people, two more votes. Do you want to be one of our last two votes? All right. We are going to close the poll and share the results. And even if we don't necessarily get to every single topic on this list tonight, we are likely to provide some other ways of talking about this again in the future. Epiphany and Puppy, my cohort in here, what do you think?
I'm wondering about having three, because the extreme weather and mud resilience, the build strike planning, and shade structure engineering are the ones that got their most energy around.
Yeah.
Then we could also have the additional topics go into the other room.
Mm,
Okay. Because we prepared for up to four breakout
yeah.
rooms.
Mhm.
So that could just be other.
Yeah, I like it. And I imagine probably there's going to be some crossover of our
Right.
topics. Yeah.
And there are also a couple of comments in the chat about wanting to
Mhm.
talk about the electrical safety.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Great. Cool.
So,
Before we
all right.
jump
So,
into our topics, though, um, we want to share a little bit more about where these came from. So, um, to kick us off for what we have learned this year and what we're going to be talking about tonight, I want to bring Level back up to share some more about the results from that post-burn survey. Um, and then we'll hear from each other. And just as a reminder, as you are thinking about what we're going to do later in the session, it's okay if you didn't come with something to talk about, or maybe you are wanting to listen rather than talk. Um, all of that is okay. Please participate as you are able to or as you want to. Um, we definitely want to hear from as many voices, if not all of the voices present, if that is comfortable for you. But if that is not comfortable for you, we still really want to have you here. And there's the ability for us to participate with each other in the chat. So, we will be breaking into groups a little bit later based on these topics, but I want to hear from Level a little bit more about what your lessons were from tomorrow today.
Great. Hi, me again, Level Head of Placement. I am gonna share a slide deck with you all that I prepared. Many of you, if you run a theme camp, know that placement asks you to fill out a post-playa report. How many people actually ended up showing up? Were you able to build your camp by a certain time? What were some challenges and lessons that you learned out there? So, I tried to do a quick summary of some of the key things that we found across the city. And so that you also know that, filling out a form doesn't just go into a black hole and no one looks at it. We actually do look at it more than once. We look at it regularly to try to, depending on the question and the time of year, hone in on a little bit more of a clue of how things went in Black Rock City for camp. So, that's what I'm going to present today. Give me a second as I load up my slide deck. All right. So, the 2025 post-playa report, here's some preliminary findings from placement slash me. They're not all fully conclusive yet, but it'll give you a little snapshot of how things went. And lo and behold, I'm sure there are going to be some not surprises here, because the number one thing that we heard about was rain and more rain and more rain. Even with the poll that we just did a minute ago, a lot of you want to talk about rain and what do we do about it? Is this going to be a thing that we can expect every year now? Of course, no one has a full crystal ball on how the climate might be changing, but that is definitely something we want to be thinking about. So before I hop into most of this, a word of advice, if you ever prepare a slide, don't put a lot of words in it because there's not a lot of time to read it. It might show up really small font for people. Well, I broke all those rules and put them all here. So each color is more extrapolated in the same color scheme. So I'll just go over the top 5 things that seem to resonate across many camps. There was a lot of extreme weather resilience. So people were really obviously, we all were out there. We all experienced it. That Saturday dust storm that no one expected and then just came out of nowhere and then lasted for hours. We all have our own story about where we were and how we handled that and what flew away and what we had to batten down. But Burning Man and burners are resilient and people don't just let things go. We rebuilt multiple times. So that's a huge kudos to, pat on the back for everyone that did that and, held down your own shade structures or whatever you needed to do to make sure that things were okay. Of course, there were also some mishaps that happened and some unfortunate incidences, including things with electrical safety. So we'll talk more about that in a bit. But overall, there was resilience. Um, some par for the course things about Black Rock City. There's major gifting statistics. So here, there were 7,000 iced teas given out by one camp, 5,000 meals given out by New York City Deli or NYC Deli, 3,000 cookies given out, 2,000 sausages, lots of food, lots of drinks, lots of fun still to be had despite the weather. There was also a high volume of interactivity. So, similar to all the things given out and gifted, there were a lot of things happening in Black Rock City. So, the BRC3 post office mailed close to 12,000 postcards. The Ultra Marathon hosted 300 runners. Costume Cult gifted 1,200 costumes. A single camp performed over 30 weddings during the week. So things were still happening. Some things were delayed. I'll show some of those numbers in a bit, but I think through and through, it was still a really great event, and there's always lessons to be learned when we come out of it. Another highlight that some camps mentioned was that they were diverse and they really kind of doubled down in our ride efforts as a community, as an event, as a community with many nodes. And so, people were specifically calling out whether that was their Black identified or BIPOC identified communities within their camps, or that there were international burners from across the globe, from many different nations and places. So kudos to that. And finally, there was a lot of pride and highlights around shared infrastructure. So the hubs program being something that is working for people where they can share resources, and people really trying out new equipment and new energy sources, trying to go solar, some even going 100% solar. So kudos all around for all of that. There were really great things to learn from this past year. I know every year we're always trying to make our experiences better. And so we're looking forward to how people report that next year. Some stats, just these are just on the whole, if you're looking at when people said they completed their build. Now, I think this is kind of a funny question because I think some people had to build their camps multiple times, and I don't know how they answered that question, whether they completed the build the first time or the second time or the third time. But lo and behold, this is what we have. We still have about, over 60% of camps, two-thirds of camps, close to that were ready to go by Sunday of gates opening. That is wonderful. If we look at probably another year, there probably were more that were ready by then because that Saturday storm really did destroy a lot of folks. That said, even though there were multiple storms, there were also patches of good weather between Monday and Wednesday, and people still got things going. So here's a little just snapshot. You can think for yourself about where you fall in line there. Were you part of the kind of the most common response, or were you kind of an outlier? Clearly, there were some camps that were still trying to figure it out Thursday and Friday of the event. And I've anecdotally know about a couple that actually threw in the towel completely because they just didn't have any reinforcements to rebuild. There's a question in the post-ply report about your camp opening time. Was it early? Was it late? Was it on schedule? And 60% were close to on schedule. Some actually were even a little early. I'm not surprised that over a third were later. I was actually a little surprised that this wasn't a bigger number, but again, in other years where weather is not so bad, this does look different. Strike day. So that was the front end. We're going to look at the back end, the tail end of the event. When are people out by? By and large, as you can see here, close to 80 something percent are out by Sunday of Temple Burn. There are some stragglers that stick around. I do want to use this as an opportunity to remind folks that technically our permit allows participants to be there through Tuesday at noon. And so of course, there's complex builds, bigger camps, things like that, that we make exceptions for. But we do encourage camps to get out there, get out of the city and back home safely as soon as they can. And so that is why you still see some folks around. It's under like 8% of the community that's there after Monday. There's a question in the PPR about attendance. So did you expect more people, or did you expect fewer people? How many people showed up to your events? About a third, a little over a third said that it was about what they expected. And we had more camps in general that got more participants than they expected than fewer. So this is kind of it's relatively even spread, leaning a little bit more towards more people participating. There's also a question in there about, did you have issues or challenges with your neighbors? So about 15% of camps said that they did. I think 8.5 out of 10 times they had great relationships, which is great. We also asked, were you able to resolve those? And it seems like, about a 50% of those were resolved. And it is placement does our best to make sure that we pair up camps and put camps on blocks and streets that are going to be complementary to each other. And just with the burner ethos, we hope everyone's just trying to be kind and generous and compassionate with their neighbors. But sometimes those camps are a little too loud, or sometimes placement didn't get it right. And so just, we want to help people continue to rely on goodwill and just being good humans in the face of that kind of adversity. We also ask a question about space allocation. Placement is the one that gets to finally determine how much camps get. And oftentimes, what we saw in the cases of when it was not enough, it tended to be camps that had last minute people join the camp, and they're like, sure, we'll take on 20 more. That's no problem. And then, of course, then they say, wow, that wasn't enough space. So, I think in a lot of our uh, talks around how good best practices around camp planning, it is really just around advanced planning and not doing last minute things. And so including last minute people sometimes it might feel like the generous thing, but often can impinge on um, how you feel once you're out there. My last few slides are a little text heavy, but I did want to highlight, I have to thank artificial intelligence here for helping me summarize over 1,300 responses to these questions. Um, but what were the lessons, the kind of the largest takeaways from your responses in the post-Ply report? Definitely, people talked a lot about hardening their infrastructure for wind and rain, as prepared as some people felt. They felt like they could be more prepared. So that's like better anchoring, really making sure things are ratchet strapped down more, not just relying on like bungee cords or, floss to hold things down, but actually using ratchet straps. So, there's also, kind of concern that some of the shade and flooring was a little impermeable. Impermeable flooring creates puddles and doesn't allow the water to like seep off and become slippery messes. Impermeable shade becomes, a wind sail. And also, if there's water and no holes in it, the water collects and so just trying to think a little bit more heartily and flexibly about shade and flooring. There also were another major theme was logistics and self-reliance. Um, there was some feedback about over-reliance on outside services, on USS, on MECO, on water, on that type of thing. I've said this in a couple other meetings, but one thing that we do remind people is that if you're rained out, everyone's rained out. So the vendor that you're counting on to deliver the thing, they're not able to drive or get around just as much as you're not able to get around. So I think that is maybe a lesson in radical self-reliance of how not to just say, wow, it's going to be simplified by getting an OSS vendor to do it for you. What kind of redundancy can you have within your camp? And then, of course, this is also around electrical safety. What are power sources that you can use when weather is more inclement and maybe you're not going to get a fuel delivery, and maybe running electrical just isn't safe. How do you decrease that dependency on it to keep things running? This is a lesson beyond the strategic scope point is a lesson beyond just the circumstances of this year and the rain. It was interesting to see people sort of recognize, I feel like from placement and from Burning Man in general, we've been trying to let people know, you don't have to blow everything out. It doesn't have to be the most all amazing laser filled, giant thing to capture people's attention and actually be something that's a really unique and wonderful experience. So to see that some mirrored in some of the responses that less is more, focusing on quality over quantity or quality over just like throwing a lot of money at it. Focusing on fewer events to make sure that they run really well rather than kind of burning people out trying to do something all the time. So those were some other themes that came about. Finally, this is my last slide. We also heard, again, this is more than just about the rain and the mud, but thinking in general about culture and accountability within your camp. That's something I know every camp lead is thinking about, who are you bringing in? How are you vetting them? How are you organized so that one person isn't going to be on the hook for providing everything, that it's really shared amongst leadership? How do you build investment in people and accountability in people to not just depart, when shit hits the fan and are ready to stick around and help figure out how to, lick the wounds and put it all back together. So definitely some thinking about that. And finally, this is always on our minds around Leave No Trace. I will mention we are still working on putting together the final MOOC map that should be released probably at the start of the year, sometime in January. But Leave No Trace, is something that we care a lot about. I've spoken to DA and gotten a little preview that lag bolts continue to be the main problem and thing that is found by ply restorations. So he would like, and I would like, and all of us would like us to pick all those things up. So metal detectors are going to be a thing to try to encourage folks to bring out there more, to share them. Not everyone needs their own personal metal detector. Not every camp necessarily needs one either, but to start using that as part of the moving process. And you will likely find older things that showed up before you even got there, but that's also leaving no trace, cleaning up after the people that came before us. So there's a few other suggestions around Leave No Trace. Some of them have been said in previous years, but sometimes you have to make those mistakes to remember them again, that they're the best practices. But having daily MOOP sweeps, but just spending like 10 minutes a day, everyone spend 10 minutes a day. It just makes the end of the event a lot easier because you're not just letting all that build up. Pre-mooping, making sure you're not bringing a lot of packaging out there is important. And then, there's this sense that newer burners, maybe burners in open camping, aren't aware of what even MOOP is. So I think we have to think, again, not just, from my point of view, but I think as just citizens of this fair city we all live in, for that week or two, to help everyone understand what exactly is MOOP and how to handle it. So, there you have it. There's a quick kind of summary of some of the wonderful information you shared with us about how your burns went. There were highs, there were lows, but I just really want to thank everyone for all the hard work you put into making Burning Man happen, in the face of the world that we live in, still doing this wonderful thing that we do out in the desert. So thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Vesper.
Thanks, Level. I do have a couple of questions for you before I let you actually get off the hot seat.
Okay, yeah.
Um, so you mentioned at the beginning that what you were sharing with us came from the post-ply report, and that it's kind of advanced data, and that some more insights and compilation might be coming. Um, how might people hear about some of that information later?
Oh, great question. I think two ways. One, we might do a future campfire talk on it. Actually, three ways. So that's one. The second way is we're always kind of preparing for the camp symposium at this time of year. And so that becomes a great place to showcase kind of all the thinking of the year and prep people for the year to come. So I love that there's 57 people on this call tonight. Typically, we get folks in the hundreds that join the camp symposium, so it's a bigger audience that we can kind of share information. And every now and then, I try to do this annually. It may or may not happen this year, but if there's big shifts or things that both I and other Burning Man leadership want people to focus attention on, we will do like a Burning Man journal post. And so, if you've been tracking this with me in my time in this seat, we've made lots of different changes. We've introduced hubs. Last year, we fast-tracked about 2/3 of the camps that have to go fill out our forms. Every year, we are iterating. Every year, we're thinking about how to kind of get rid of the pinch points people feel. And so if I chew on some more data and feel like there's going to be rich morsels here for the community to hear, we're going to share that and help you understand our thinking behind something that might change or a new way we might be doing something. Um, I have two data analyst volunteers on my team. I'm always looking for more to really help us digest that information more. It both helps my team sort of make better decisions. We're looking at things kind of in that specific year, but we're also looking at trends over time. So we're looking at things like how quickly your camp's growing, what's the lifespan of a camp, is it, when does a camp typically go from one size to another size. There's all sorts of ways that we can look at it more that I'm trying to get better at. But it just takes a village to look at those numbers too. And so we're also looking for more. So those are a few ways I hope to share more data. If you showed up to the camp symposium the last few years, we've usually done like a highlights of like what percentage of camps in Black Rock City have bars, 2/3, like that stuff wasn't shared before. Not for lack of interest, but just for lack of capacity. And so we have a little bit more capacity now. And as we get more, we'll be sharing more through different channels.
Awesome. Thanks. And I know that a lot of this information came from the feedback that you got from people through the post-play report. We're going to talk a lot tonight about things that we've been thinking about maybe since then. How might people relay feedback to placement or the org now that the post-play report is closed?
Oh, great question. Another great question. You can always email us, placement@burningman.org. I know that might feel like a really generic answer because it's like a really generic email address, but we have many eyes on that inbox. We have a goal of turning around emails no more than 48 hours after we receive them. This is a quieter time of year, typically because folks are in hibernation, but yeah, we're happy to take questions at any point through that process. I know some folks also try to like Facebook message people on my team. We generally have a policy not to respond that way. So just be offended about that. They're just doing their jobs. We do have our eyes and ears open on like the Facebook Theme Camp organizers group, also on Reddit. So we're not like spying on those faces. We're just trying to be good community members, knowing what the chat is about at that time. So, you can try to throw something at us there, but we might redirect you to still email us, especially if it's a very specific thing related to your camp or your neighbor, or an idea that you have. But yeah, we're attuned to what's out there because we just care and we want to know and want to figure out how we can make it better in the role that we play. So yeah.
Yeah. And you have, I think, monthly office
Oh
hours
my gosh,
where
yes.
people can come and talk to you.
Duh. Yeah. Why don't Papa Bear, I think, is on his call. I can let him tell you about that.
Our upcoming office hours are Thursday, the 11th of December, at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and then Friday, the 12th of December at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And I'll find the registration link. But the office hours are very informal, just a small gathering where us from placements, including some of our placers and myself, Level won't be here for this upcoming one. Answer your questions, whatever they may be. If they are get a little too specific on your camp, we may ask to like do that by email. But we love to hear your questions and talk about things. And the statement of intent's opening right around then, so it's a great time to come in and ask your steaming SOI questions.
Thanks, Papa Bear. Thanks, Level. Thanks for this information and for helping us get our thoughts flowing about reflecting on this year. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you all for showing up, and I'll sit back and hear what we learned and
Cool.
how it all worked out.
Yeah. So we are wanting to gather some smaller groups together so that we can really dive into some of these topics that came out in our poll. So we are going to continue our discussion for about a half an hour in some breakout rooms. So um, we're going to have, I think, 4 breakout rooms let's see, team, what are you thinking? Should we just stay here? Do you want to go to breakout rooms? What are you thinking? Epiphany?
Can we chat with our friends on the call? I know there was a wide variety of topics that folks wanted to talk about. So I want to make sure that we're able to do that, but I'm also
Yeah.
noticing that a lot of folks don't have their camera on. And so I'm not really sure if folks are here to hear about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think we can stay here. For all of us, as the poll results came in, as our team was kind of talking about, like, do we split into groups? Do we stay in one room? Something that came out for us is that the topic of extreme weather and possibly mud resilience was kind of or adverse conditions, um, kind of a theme in many of these topics. And so there may be that element in a lot of these things that people want to talk about. And I think that that also came out in what Level was highlighting as well, of like logistics, infrastructure, maybe some cultural things, interactivity. Um, so let's maybe I'll hang out here, um, particularly if we're all going to stay in this big room together for this discussion. Um, And I'm excited about this because we get a lot of voices together to speak. What we don't want is for a lot of voices to be speaking all at one time. So we're going to have some decorum as we go through this discussion. Um, uh, when you have something to contribute, there are a couple of ways to do that. We're going to ask that when you are not actually speaking, like when I haven't called on you, to please keep your mic muted. That way everyone can hear what the person who's speaking has to say. Because when it's your turn to share, we really want to hear what you are coming to share. We also can participate via the chat. So please feel free. We have some really awesome chat mods working with us tonight. So if you have questions or comments, you can also put it into the chat. But if you do want to participate verbally, there are going to be a couple of ways to do that. You can either probably with this group would recommend using the Zoom feature, reaction feature to raise your hand in Zoom. It's a lot of faces in here to kind of have me watch for an actual hand, but I'll try to keep that out. Level is demoing hand raising for us. So down in the bottom of your Zoom dashboard, or in whether you're on mobile or on a computer, there'll be a reactions button. And if you click that, there should be a button for raising your hand. That'll create a stack of hands for us so that then I can call on you and facilitate the discussion among us all. And kind of keep an eye out in here, my mods, cool. As we start to have our discussion, please be respectful with each other. Speak from your own experience. What worked for you may not work for someone else, and vice versa. What was the best idea you had for your infrastructure, maybe the thing that failed for someone else. The playa is a very fickle place. What works in the 2 o'clock sector may not work in the 6 o'clock sector. So please keep that in mind. And let's get into it. A lot of people had mentioned in the chat before wanting to talk about weather, and in particular, wanting to talk about the impact that had on either logistics in our build and strike, the shade and the structure that we were putting together for ourselves, um, or the particular impact that weather had on our power and electrical systems. And this year especially, there was an, a critical incident with one of our participants and electrical. Who's got some strong things to say? Who wants to kick us off? Yeah, Woofy Woof, hello.
Hey, on the topic of that incident, there was a really, really comprehensive follow-up article from one of the first responders that I just wanted to call out for anybody that hasn't seen it. I love seeing that stuff percolate up from the bottom up of the community. I don't have a lot to add to that letter, but if anybody hasn't seen it or anybody has a link to it, really, really top tier stuff.
Yeah, thanks. And actually, thank you for that reminder as we're starting to get going. If you have something that might be a helpful resource, um, perhaps within the bounds of decommodification, please throw it into the chat. We're compiling as a Campfire support Camp Network team, compiling a resource list that we can share both for our individual Campfire talks and something that's ongoing. And we would love to add your resources to that piece. And Enrique, it looks like you were the person who wrote that post. Would you like to share some about it? I see your hand.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for the invite. I'm happy to be here. A little background on that. I'll tell the whole story if people want to hear it. If not, then we can skip and talk about it later. I'm a medical professional and I have worked for ESD, which for those who don't know is the medical branch of the volunteers that cover us when we were at the burn. This year I was not working in that capacity. I'm an anesthesiologist in the default world. And just happened to be next door at the camp where that happened. And somebody came to my trailer and said, there was an incident, there's been an electrocution. And they knew that I had a bunch of medical gear. So I arrived and found a gentleman who was unconscious and pulseless. And there was a lady who was a nurse who was doing CPR on the gentleman. And they had called ESD, but they hadn't arrived. I had grabbed my AED, an automatic defibrillator, because I knew that's what I was going to go, do from the description of the accident. And we were able to defibrillate the gentleman and got a pulse back for a period of time. And so, it was quite the incident with a very good response by ESD and the folks that were already there. Stressful on our part from, of course, the camp members who were there and witnessed that whole situation. Somebody else was also shocked trying to save that gentleman. They realized that the energized source was still there and they had to disconnect this generator. And then after that, they were able to get to this person and start CPR. This person was taken. We did take the person to Rampart, which is the emergency room on Playa, and did survive to get there. We did do some CPR on the way there. He did survive about 9 days in a Reno ICU, but was then eventually taken off life support because he was not improving and had probably some severe brain and or organ damage. So the next morning, I really wanted to try to figure out what the source was if we could figure that out. And so I did take a lot of pictures and I thought I could find one source of maybe how this could have happened to try to stop this again. But I found like 5 or 6 things that were just horrible, that were just really sketchy kind of electrical work in a situation where there was really bad equipment in bad state of disrepair, cords that were cut, loose wires. I mean, it was just endless. It's in the post. on Facebook. I can share photos with people. And so from that, started this whole discussion about safety and electrical and what we can do to stop that from happening again. And camps that bring like huge electrical systems with grids and like it's, obviously it runs the whole gamut from little small personal generators to solar generators to huge 7,510 watt, kilowatt trailer mounted Jennies, which is what the situation was here. And some camps rent this stuff and have a basic minimal instruction on how to put it together. And people have some gear that maybe they're not very familiar with. And so the org, of course, fills them with gas, but doesn't ask to do anything else. You're responsible for your own grid, of course, and keeping it safe. And what we do in the rain and those kind of situations is important to discuss here and other places. I think that, that post on the group provided a lot of information from a lot of people that are, electricians and know what they're doing. And we talked about ways to remedy this and should the org regulate this type of situation. My only idea coming forward on that was, I think every camp should have an AED. I think that's, $800 you can invest in something that it's in every mall and every airport. I think we should all have them. And then maybe coming up with some kind of situation where there's a group, just like, the Rangers or the fire department or the people that, fix bikes. Like, why not have, I said, the Burning Man Power Rangers that go out and they can say, hey, like, we'd love to inspect your gear if you guys want help, or if you want to say, hey, come look at my generator grid setup at the end of build week. Why not have, a group of electrical folks that are licensed in the real world and they can provide to the playa and just give their gift. It's just like, hey, let me look over your gear, something that's people can just decide to do it. It's not mandated, but of course, like we want to make sure, who wouldn't want their grid inspected by somebody who knows it well? And I thought that creating that group of, I'm not the professional that does that, I'm a doctor, but there are a bunch of electricians that know a lot about, people that set up stages every week and sound engineers and people that know about this stuff well. These people could help not make this hopefully not happen again. Sketchy gear. If you find that your camp mate or the camp next door is something sketchy, you can, call the Rangers and say, hey man, somebody should have a look at that setup. Looks sketchy. How many people have been shocked on playa and not been fatal? From that post, like I heard about a lot of people that said, hey, I got shocked or I had a minor situation or like we just got lucky. I think we shouldn't have another death, man. Anyway, I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, thanks, Enrique. Appreciate it. And thank you for sharing both on Facebook and here with us some of the details of what happened and what you found. I know that in outdoor climbing, mountaineering communities, when there's an accident, there is very detailed reporting shared, an analysis of what happened for exactly this reason to help others learn from situations that may have a bad outcome so that maybe we can prevent things from happening to other people in the future. Yeah. Yeah. Miss Claire, hello. Oh, yeah,
There we go. Can you hear me now?
we can. Hello.
Hi guys. Yeah, just a comment on people going into camps. So some of you know this, some of you don't, but I am one of the field agents for DPW Petrol. So one of my jobs is actually safety compliance for fuel storage. So we go around and check on the generators and tag them so they get their fuel, and then check on any fuel that's being stored in camps. We have had in the last few years, and Enrique, I think having somebody be able to go and take a look at power things is a terrific idea. However, we have had pushback about folks from departments or whatever you want to call it, going in to quote inspect camps. And however nice we are about it, there are a lot of camps that just don't appreciate somebody coming and checking on things, which sounds ridiculous, I know. And after this year, that might change because of the outcome of the fact that nobody went and checked this one. What I would love to see, though, is something, and I don't think it exists because I don't think I've ever seen it, but something equivalent to our fuel storage page. on the website that gives people solid guidance about the dangers. And especially as we're getting more wet weather, the patterns seem to be that we are getting more wet weather during the event. So I think the first thing we should look at doing, if it's not out there already, is come up with some sort of informational page that is written by people who know what they're talking about, and to help camp leads. I'm also camp lead, by the way. Make sure that their storage, that their fuel, their power is correct. If there already is a page in there somewhere, then it needs to be pushed forward because it's obviously not apparent. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have people go and inspect. There's nothing better than a pair of eyes looking at something when that pair of eyes is trained to look for the problems, which is what is one of my jobs. But we definitely have had some pushback in recent years about people coming in to check on things like that. So I'm just putting that out there as a piece of information.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And I think I see in the chat that Michelle, I think you're probably not alone in as a camp lead or a camp um, wanting someone to kind of double check. I know that particularly among theme camp organizers, there can be some camaraderie around sharing, hey, I tried this thing and it didn't work very well. You might have better luck, but try this other thing. And the collaboration to help us all get better, particularly as Miss Claire was talking about, we have had more adverse weather more recently. Um, so I'm curious, given that I know some of us who have been going for a while originated our infrastructure from kind of what we remember from back in the day, which is hot, dry, and windy. Um, and throwing wet and potentially cold weather into the mix is something relatively new to plan for. So I'm really curious about who out there in our group tonight may have some ideas or solutions for uh, power, safe power in wet weather, um, and or other infrastructure. Yeah, John, I see you down there.
Hey there. Uh, John Sirgardi. I've been a burner since 1995. I have, in the 30 years, seen wet weather, snow, and 100 degrees in one day. So it does happen. I've seen lightning go sideways down the streets. Um, so it's not new. It is changing, and it is more severe than I have ever seen at Burning Man. Outside of BlackRock. I think we're focusing. We do BlackRock hardware. We make shade. It's our fundraiser for our art. My art being Art Cars, Empire, the lime green spaceship, Golden Mean, Serpent Twins. We're working on an idea of the flat roof is essential to me for wind resistance and staying out of the heat. We're a firm believer in sunblock tarps and not permeable structures. It just, if you block the sun, it's that much cooler. So we're working on a way of plumbing the tarp. So we've come up with a little attachment that you can put a hole in your tarp and run a garden hose from the center of the structure and feed that to a bucket or a different place in camp where it's more appropriate. So that's kind of where I'm headed towards solving that problem. And I think the other lesson learned this year was staking things down. Our camp survived fine, except for the one spot where we were not finished with our frontage sign. and didn't put up that strap, and we immediately lost that section of shade as soon as that came. So educating people, how that's my plan, is really educating people and not suggesting as I have done in the past, really emphasizing tie your stuff down. Don't take a break until you're done. You really just make a window, set it up, and then rest. So I think that's where, and simple. I really want to, I really admire VW Bus Camp as an independent, each person is responsible for their gear, their camp, their kitchen, and emphasizing that simplicity, and that you don't need to join a giant camp, pay dues, have multiple Zoom meetings, and to really educate the new people coming in that it's as simple as a place to sleep, some shade, a way to get out there, and a cooler to keep your food cold, and to not have all this stuff. We don't need to be bringing all this gear out there to enjoy the art. So that's my PSAs that I'm going to be pushing out. And if anybody has any questions on shade stuff, hit me up.
Nice. Thanks, John.
Yep.
Other thoughts about infrastructure and/or power? Yeah, Cheryl, hello. Oh, Cheryl, you're on mute though.
Okay. I am interested in the issues around phasing your build so that you don't leave part of your structure undone while it might be vulnerable. So if you had a large scale group camp, you could do all the roof at the same time, or you could do the roof and the walls and the ratcheting of the first part of it, and then move to the next part and then move to the next part. So am I just having PTSD from Saturday last year by thinking that it really matters how you plan your hours during the build window? Thank you.
Yeah. Cheryl, I'm going to paraphrase, just to make sure that I understand. You are wondering about how best to apply a phased approach to your build.
Right. To make it resilient to the fact that you might have a storm in the middle of construction period.
Yeah. Yeah. And follow-up question, are you a small camp or a large camp? And what does that mean to you?
We have like 16 people.
16.
And so that's pretty small.
Okay. And because I think also part of that is how many people are you working with for setup? Like that might figure into what some of our answers might be around.
Let's say at least 12 people are usually
Okay.
around. Like you're not allowed to come to our camp unless you're there for either the whole build or the whole strike. So
cool. Yeah. Group. Thoughts about how you might phase a build so that we're minimizing vulnerable points as we're building. Yeah, John.
One of the things we do is to make sure to plan how people come and leave. We have the same rule. You either set up or you strike. We make sure that the folks that come in last are also, their structures are going to go away first. So we kind of establish a core, 20 by 20 or whatever that might be, as that's the last shade standing. so that we can tear things down. Maybe we'll start on Friday. Those folks that need to leave early, that's been planned in so their structures can be removed from the outside edges. So we're slowly becoming smaller as we progress through that weekend. That works really well. It's a little bit more management. Um, Marilee, who does that management, just stepped in. So, but it really does help, and it also giving us that one structure to gather under while things get smaller helps to keep everybody healthy and hydrated. So
Yeah.
that's my suggestion.
Sounds like there is quite a bit of pre-planning that goes into layout, and particularly thinking about what needs to go up in your layout when and where that needs to be in your plot, that kind of thing. Yeah. And, no plan survives contact with the playa. So, whatever, however that turns out. Yeah. Others, build, phasing, ideas. Yeah, Michelle, hello.
Hi. So thinking about phasing things out, I think that we have a large pallet racking structure. So getting the different sections up and then getting the shades on it, we do kind of bursts so that we have essentially all eyes on one thing or half of the eyes on one thing. So that if something were to happen, it's like you're only focusing on one item and you could tear that down and everything else is secure, right? And so then when the next shade needs to go up, it's like a lot of eyes are on it and there's not a lot of kind of separating where you have many shades going up at once and therefore you have a lot of things to bring down if something were to go wrong. So I wouldn't say it's phasing too, kind of rigid. It's more of a burst of, okay, now we're ready for this thing, bring that out of the semi truck. Okay, we're putting this up, et cetera, et cetera. And then making sure that's secure before you move on to the next item.
Yeah, it sounds like you all do kind of an all hands on deck, one thing at a time kind of approach. Something a
Yeah,
little bit like that.
for bigger items or, bigger infrastructure pieces, yes. And
Mm,
then, while maybe a few are setting up for the next thing, then others can start working on other things. And then, but when it's actually going up, everyone is kind of paying attention. And, we have people that are securing things just in time or et cetera, like that.
yeah. Yeah. Um, Thanks. Really
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah. Others. I saw that there was a comment in the chat about making sure that the part that's a sail goes on last, after all of the other pieces are fully connected and secured. And there was also a couple of interesting comments about guys and ratchets and how we're actually like securing things to the playa. I'm curious if there's more out there about that. Yeah, Dwayne.
I'm interested in folks. How did you handle water in your camp? So, a lot of us were living in a pond. And did you figure out how to create pathways that were above that and not slippery and prevented face plant? Did you have safe spaces available for people to congregate, in the downpour? So managing the monsoon in camp. Interested in how folks manage that and what I can steal from you.
Ooh, cloth painter's tarps. Yeah.
Hey, Vesper, can I
Enrique, I
mention
saw
something?
you. Yeah, yeah, please.
So at the point where we had rain, I think for mud burn, and I think a little bit during this time, I was with a larger camp, and we had found two things that were helpful. In the high traffic areas, what we ended up doing is that they didn't dry quickly, they needed to be walked through. We actually shoveled some of the wet playa to the side, and then underneath there was dry playa. So you would have wet on the sides and you'd have dry in the middle. Obviously, that makes some berms, but it would give you a dry area to walk that hadn't dried yet, and you could shovel the wet stuff to the side, and then you would have some dry walking spaces. In the area of a kitchen where we were feeding people that had a high traffic area, that was covered with some cardboard on the floor. That was from our food vendor. So the dried cardboard was laid on top of the wet surface, and then people could walk through and get fed if they needed to get fed. And that was a high traffic area that was turning into a muddy, slippery mess. The dry cardboard flattened out on top of it, helped quite a bit. Didn't destroy the playa, and it was easy to pick up once it was dry. So we found those things to be helpful.
Yeah, thanks. I know John had mentioned their spigot in the tarps. I wonder if anyone else does that, and or gutters, maybe. I know in our camp we have peaked roofs, but when those connect, all the water runs down the slope of your roof and falls into the middle of your space. Yeah, John.
We on the tarp systems, we were releasing not the corner ball bungee, but maybe one or two in from the corner. We would then tie a rope to that where that ball bungee was, or several ball bungees down to a 5-gallon bucket, and that created a way for the water to drain off, or you could push with a broom towards that area to release it into a bucket. We also found various objects in camp, the 5-gallon square water containers that were empty. We'd save those and place those on the center bar of our shade. A milk crate, like a square milk crate, worked well. Make sure to tie that with ball bungees, so if it does, wind picks up, it doesn't fall off and hit somebody in the head. 5-gallon plastic empty water bottles. All of those things created a temporary way for us to peak the roof, but then to quickly be able to pull that down if rain stopped and wind picked up. So I think all of those solutions worked really well for us.
Nice.
We did create, not so much this year, but the previous year, it rained, the previous rainstorm, the quantity of water was much greater than this time. And we troughed that water like a ditch system around. It started out to protect the tents, and it ended up to be protection for small spaces for people to hang out. So kind of a little 6x6 dry area that we would, I told everybody as the rain came, grab a 5-gallon bucket and a chair and sit and enjoy each other. Don't walk around. If you can wait long enough for things to naturally dry out, it's much better on your camp than trying to creating mud balls that will take days to dry out. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that seeing the difference, especially in 2023, from sheltering in place early on build week, versus later getting out and walking around, between how the playa dried hard and then having to navigate versus through all the ruts. Yeah, yeah. Claire.
One thing that I've done, and serendipitously it's proved to be useful when we've had increased amounts of wet weather. I used to tent camp for decades. I've tent camped and then went to the dark side and got a trailer a few years ago when I started working for DPW and was coming in super early. But I've always laid down a ground top outside, not just under my tent, but in the case of my trailer, it as a sort of path towards the door. And I would do the same with the tent. And that I did primarily to reduce the amount of dust that was getting trekked in and out of my dwelling. But I've also found that it's made it a lot easier to walk into the trailer. Now, obviously, you could make paths, I guess, by laying down tarps. Also, our main shade structure for our camp, which is the home to the Clockship Terry, has always had it's an old billboard pegged down to the floor, which has helped too. It's allowed a space where people can congregate, where we're not churning up mud. Obviously, you've got to get there, but that has helped a lot. And I simply hold my ground tops down with the staples that are used for holding down landscaping fabric. They're like 3-4 inches long, and you can just step them in and they come out really easily when you need them to come out. But that's just a thought for sort of immediate remediation of churned up dirt.
And floor coverings of any type will also help with mooping as well. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Florence, hello.
Hello. I just wanted to maybe give another, helpful tip that worked out really well for our camp when we had just had torrential rain at night. I know that we definitely had some situations where if we had taken down tarps that were our shade structures, we would have flooded some people's tents, and it was just too many structures to really take down at once. But we did have a transfer pump, so almost like what you would use to like kind of drain out an aquarium or something. And like with a team of 3, one person with a hose to actually reach up between the tarps and into kind of the pools of water that were collecting on top of each tarp. One person hold like a ladder, and then somebody with, like a 5-gallon bucket. We were able to clear out, or at least kind of stay ahead of the tarps ripping, which I think ended up being a lifesaver. It was like it's a continuous task for as long as there is rain kind of coming down, but it ended up being a lot more effective than having to drop down corners and kind of flood the center of camp.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a cool idea. It's almost like you're taking, I know in our camp we've had those for like an evapotron. And using that to drain it off to get there in the first place.
Yeah, and it's nice. I know there's some that we had a battery powered one. There's some where you can just kind of use like positive pressure, kind of like a hand pump. Pretty cheap. I think ours was like 20 or $30 from Home Depot. So ended up being a lifesaver there.
Cool. What were you originally going to use it for?
I think combining kegs of beer. Yeah, little dual purpose. I don't think we ended up using it for that. Maybe would have put a little bit too much mud in the beer.
Very cool innovation using what you had it on hand. Other thoughts about infrastructure as we're kind of coming close to the top of the hour? Yeah, woofy woof. Oh, you're on mute though.
Okay, I got it, I think. I got lucky. I'm kind of new to this thing of ours. My first big one was in 23, but that was really wet anyway. But the folks that I've been with the whole time are a bunch of like crusty, dusty Renault that have been doing this since like before I even knew what existence was. So seeing them operate was an education in like everything that I'm hearing here, stake down, have a process, have a map, iterate. We lost like one bendy bit of our kitchen at Camp Side Piece because these folks are since like goodness, to learn from them, what a privilege. The question there is there a place where as a new camper, when I don't have the benefit of camping with them, I can kind of see like the de facto norms for how folks have done these best effort or like best practices things. Because right now for me it's doing the Facebook organic search thing and yeah, like what are the go-tos for how to have approached a year like this correctly?
Mm-hmm. Like where do you learn?
Learn, or is it like are there is there anything jump out at you in terms of cheat sheets that would They would have said, hey, get all your poles down at the angles against the prevailing winds, and here's a
Mm.
prevailing wind map. Or where's like the duocracy opportunity for me to get in there and do that if that doesn't exist. I don't want to start proposing anything without knowing what's already out there, and like if there are like definitive libraries for that kind of stuff in the
Yeah.
burnerverse, or how that kind of works.
Yeah. Uh, Group. Uh, I know I have some thoughts about this, but I'd like to hear where would you go? If you wanted to maybe, if you were thinking about switching from rebar to lag bolts, where would you go to figure out what would be best? If you were wondering what is the right angle for your ratchet straps to hold down your shade structure. Um, if you're a ratchet strap versus rebar person, where would you go to figure that out? I see ePly forum. It's good. I know the TCO Facebook page group gets some stuff. Is there like a secret channel where everyone shares all the best practices? You have to know the handshake to get in. There, just for like a shameless plug of our own group, um, there are also previous campfire talks, previous camp symposiums, um, and histories in both Reddit groups, Facebook groups, um, and potentially also some stuff to learn on Hive for infrastructure, where other events like this, people might be talking about where some of those things might be. Bratty Cat has dropped a couple of those resources into the chat. Our information about our red folder, which is kind of like an emergency resource for your camp, all in one place. And then also link to our previous campfire talks as well. Well, if I do know that when we start getting into like what might be the best thing to use for some of those pieces, um, uh, there's some contention about what might be the best thing to use. But what's amazing about that is you'll get a lot of people sharing what they've tried and what they've learned and why that might work for them, which is really cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. They're like last bits. It's been coming around. Who had a really great win this year? I know that we've been talking about the hard stuff that we as burners like to suffer through because it's fun. And we get to figure out the new thing that we're going to do better next year. But I know that some of that amazing stuff also happened this year in the face of adversity. So I wonder if anyone here had some stuff happen and then you came back in a way that was great or felt really triumphant, especially. Jennifer.
Our camp was one of the ones that was completely demolished in the windstorms. And we decided to pull what we could out Saturday night when everything stopped. And we invited the whole neighborhood up for a mini bar party with the entire thing was destroyed, but in the back, Every premix we had made, all our supplies were still perfectly on the shelves. And so we're like, it's a sign that our guys are like, I want a DJ, pull your shit out. And it was so great. The entire neighborhood in 730 came by to check on us, to offer us supplies, to volunteer to come out and help us rebuild. And I kept telling everybody, like, stuff is stuff. We can rebuy stuff, but the nature of having everybody really come together, people we didn't know stopped by and gave us hundreds of dollars of new tarps and supplies. And it was just, that's what makes me cry. And that's what I think is so beautiful. And we had our little mini party because we needed to celebrate that we're okay. But it was so nice because people were coming up the rest of the week and saying, I needed to see that you were out there, because seeing you guys laugh at it made us okay with everything else that happened. So just like our win is our neighborhood, 100%.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Harbor.
Hey there. I have a win story that I could actually parlay into a question. We spent a lot of time talking about build, but I actually have a question about strike, which strike was my win for this year. Previous years, kind of sloppy and a lot of stuff tailing around till Tuesday. This year, we started off with just a whole camp breakfast as sort of our call to our final camp meeting that was detailing our strike procedures and all that. We had a fluffer team pretty much watering, feeding, and like spray misting everybody throughout. We had a container inventory team, and we actually got about 85-90% of our camp struck just on Saturday. My question and sort of difficulty should be contextualized around where a work support camp, Temple Guardians. So Saturday is our big strike day. Sunday is pretty much all dedicated to temples. Start of the day, closing temple, all the way through temple burn, and then any leftover stuff done on Monday. This year, totally fine. Last year, Sunday and Monday were like dust storms pretty much all day. And on my camp intake form, I do ask people, what day do you plan to depart? And I, plan my strike schedule accordingly. Last year, a ton of people, like Saturday strike didn't go nearly as well as this year. We're still getting our procedures down, but due to the news of wind, hey, we're going to have windstorm all Monday. A ton of people that I was expecting to be around on Monday pretty much bugged out as soon as Temple Burn was over. So lost a ton of people, and that meant that by Tuesday morning, after the Monday night winds had died down, there was maybe 5 of us busting ass to get just the remaining stuff down. Now, I know that theme camps, y'all are there for your camp. Us, we're volunteers for our org department, and while I can always be like, I need you here to help take care of this camp that you lived in. I would, I don't know, love people's thoughts on incentivizing, encouraging, or otherwise more strongly keeping people around until the time that they say that they were actually going to be around, other than, hey, maybe we won't invite you back next year. Like, any suggestions there? I would love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Harbor. Um, and awesome that you went from having a really hard strike to like, thank goodness everything this year worked so well for you.
Yeah, shockingly high energy. But
May it
yeah,
always be that way.
especially with like, imagine if the rains from the start of this week were actually at the end of this week. Like, I thought about
Yeah.
that too. Like, we would not have had such an amazing strike schedule. People would have been behind their going home schedule. And like, how do you get people to stick around and feel accountable to the camp that they lived in?
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, maybe even adding an additional piece to that, in addition to having, how do you get people to stay around? Sometimes you can't. Like maybe you're not going to be able to hold your people hostage to stay for strike. And so then how do you pivot and make your strike possible with fewer people such that those fewer people do end up coming back next year. Yeah. Yeah. Mo, jump in. Hi.
Oh my God, I'm eating. I didn't think you were gonna call me so soon. Let me turn on my camera. So, in response to strike, I think one win that we had. By the way, I'm the camp lead from the Mud Skippers. Um, One thing that we did this year was we went to a trailer ahead of time in the spring, and I know that not every camp can do that, and we pre-built the camp. So we tried to, stick to that pre-build. Obviously, we couldn't because of the weather. But had the weather been perfect, it would have been an even bigger win. That way, it not only helped our strike as well, and we only took out of the trailer what we actually needed. We labeled based on our map. I think that like after 18 burns, I really believe there is no silver bullet, lack of a better word, to keep people in the camp until they say they will. But I think the work that you do pre-playa is so important. Orientation calls, holds people accountable. Um, and one thing that I do as well is, as a camp lead, is I have a mandatory all hands that happens the week prior to everyone heading to the playa. That's when the entire camp is on the same Zoom, and we go over important things that people need to remember, but we don't want to go over like during orientation because that's like, early in the year and they won't remember. So that includes, hey, this is we project a PowerPoint with everyone's submitted departure date and say, hey, you know what? This is what we're doing. This is when you said you're gonna leave. If anything changed, let us know because this is what we expect from you. Literally expecting people to see the work and saying, hey, I'm gonna stick around to help doesn't work. We have to like do a lot of work pre-playa to hold them accountable.
Thanks, Mo.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Miss Claire, jump in with our last comment before I wrap it up.
Yeah, trying to pre-plan, especially if you have new folks, is incredibly important. And it's something we've learned in the fuel department. I was the person that initially set up during the COVID shutdown our online platform for training the fuel staff. And the reason we did that was because we used to do all of our training for the volunteers and the staff actually once they got there. We would ask them to do stuff ahead of time, but it never happened. And now it's a requirement. And what we've learned from that is, of course, that once people get to playa, they're all excited. They don't remember. They just don't do things the way that makes life a lot easier for all of us. So any kind of, I hate to say training, but it really makes a difference if you can get as much of that done before you hit playa, and especially if you have new people, because they are just ready to go at other things, not necessarily putting up the things that you need.
Mm. 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 Woofy woof, you want
I just want to co-sign that. Like, this thing is learning, man. It's not burning, man. Right? And if we can get folks up on that early in the year and get them skilling up in the spaces that they want to step into for the camp and not just showing up to vibe, I think that's kind of the mission, and that's kind of a really fly foundation to woof.
Yeah. Yeah. So Harbor, maybe if we bring it all together for you, um, planning, both in terms of your what goes where of your physical infrastructure, but maybe also planning around the interpersonal connections in the people. Um, Either building investment in their team so that they want to be there and hang out and help everyone, or um, making sure that everyone knows what needs to be done and how and where. Um, And that even if that doesn't keep people around until the very last day, maybe it makes things a little bit easier for the people who are left. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. We do a ton of pre-camp planning, like both my camp and the Guardians as a whole. So there's already a good community feel, but weather scares people. So, do what you can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Mo, did you have one last thing to add?
Yes, I forgot to mention that I have been developing since returning to the playa a camp management platform. As an all-in-one applications, roster, tasks, and event shifts. I'm going to put the link here if anyone is interested in testing. I would love to hear your feedback.
Cool. Thanks, Mo. And
You're
we've been
welcome.
gathering a lot of resources in the chat as well, which is amazing. We have a resource aggregation for this particular campfire talk, as well as some resources tied with our other campfire talks as well. But amazing resources and pieces of insight that people have shared in the chat today. So thank you all for that. And, tied to one of the questions that came up earlier, I know that in this group, this sharing of ideas and what was the evidence-based thing that worked for my camp, and continuing our questions about how do I do this? How might this work? How might I do this better? Will continue in some of these other forums. And I hope that one of those forums in the future where we come together to share our ideas and insights and provide support and connection to each other will be one of our future campfire talks later this season. So hopefully in the coming months, we will see your faces again in one of our campfire talks, at the camp symposium, maybe even joining our team. Please take a moment to fill out our feedback form. This is one of the places where we get ideas for what you are interested in hearing as part of our Campfire Talk series. And we're always looking for volunteers, both with Campfire Talks and with Camp Symposium. So please fill out our form to join us, to really join us. Or we hope to see you in one of our sessions in the future. Check out our past Campfire Talks on the Burning Man website. And I hope you all have a really good night. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone. Take care.